Good morning and welcome to my channel. I'm the General of Rome and today we are continuing my tutorial and how to play series for Europa Universalis 4. This time we will be talking about all the different things that are on the screen just when you start the game, like the different numbers that are to be seen on the screen. So first of all the different numbers up here. The most left of them is the treasury. This is where you can see how much money you have as a nation. Right now, as the Ottomans, I have 297 ducats. And as you can see, the last balance, so the last income that I got from the last month, was 10.25 ducats. Which means that this is a rough calculation of the amount of ducats that we will get at the end of each month. Now of course this can change by different factors, but I won't go into that right now. I will talk about that in another video talking about economics. So over here we will move on to manpower. Manpower is the amount of man that your nation can provide to create units that you can fight with, and the amount of man that you can use to reinforce the already existing units if you would happen to have a fight with someone else and lose some of your men. Now of course if you don't have any manpower you can't reinforce these regiments and you also cannot make any new ones. So it's always very important to keep your manpower at least somewhat sustainable. Now next up is sailors. Sailors is an addition to the game that has been made not that long ago, and it's not that important. Sailors is basically the manpower for ships. Oh yeah, one last thing about manpower. Below the maximum, as you can see here, the maximum amount of manpower your nation can get, which is calculated by amount of provinces and how good your provinces are and things like that. There's also a number that right now it's 277, and it says that this is the amount of manpower that you will get each month. Of course, again, this can change if you improve your provinces or get more provinces. And actually, below that you can see why the amount of manpower that you get is calculated from, where it's calculated from. Like I said, the base value and from provinces. Now the reason that sailors isn't that important is, well, first of all, a lot of nations on the map are landlocked and won't ever need sailors to get boats. Because sailors, if you don't have any sailors, you can't build more boats. Just like you can't build regiments if you don't have manpower. Now the problem with this, why it's not important at all, not only is that most nations won't ever need it, but you don't ever have to worry about this, since the amount of sailors that you get if you have any coastal provinces is so insanely high that you will never run out of sailors. Next up is stability. Now, stability is really important because, again, it makes sure that your nation is stable and it can give you bonuses. Stability can go up to +3 and down to -3. Positive stability, of course, giving you some bonuses, and negative stability giving you some penalties. So if I were to cheat myself some points, There we go. I could, of course, now make sure that I get better stability, and I won't explain this because I will look at all of these different things in another video. Right now I have positive stability, and as you can see, this has effect on a lot of different factors. Your trade is better, your spy detection is better, you will have less unrest, so you won't get rebels that quickly. Now, as you can notice, if you have positive stability, it's very expensive to raise it any further. Because of course otherwise every player would always be at +3 stability. Missionary strength goes up, making it easier to convert provinces of a different fate. Yearly corruption. Corruption is something that I will talk about later in other videos. But basically it means that... oh yeah, of course I have to talk about it over here. Never mind. I will talk about that in just a second. And institution spread, which again is something that I will talk about in other videos, but basically it has to do with being able to embrace new technologies. Now, next up is corruption. Corruption, yeah, basically means how corrupt your nation is, and if you have high corruption, you will get penalties for this. Which means that you will have to make sure that the corruption goes away. And the way to do that is to spend money on it. So, how do you gain corruption? Well, from a few actions like taking land. If you take any land that isn't your cores, and cores, if you don't know what that is, I will talk about that in another video. But basically you get corruption from taking provinces, and you need to buy it down basically with your money. Which means that while you're buying it down, you will probably be losing money. Now, next up is prestige. Basically how prestigious your country is. Like how important other nations think your country is. And this will affect, again, a certain amount of things, like yeah, there's just a whole list of things down there. The effects from our current prestige, global trade power goes up, the morale of armies and morale of navies go up, which means that your armies will fight, and your armies and navies will fight better. Mercenary cost goes down, which means that you can hire regiments without needing manpower, but I will talk about that in another video. Spy detection goes up, which means that you can detect foreign spies easier. Legitimacy goes up, which I will talk about just in a second. Improved relations goes up, which means that I think it was that you can improve relations faster with other countries. And the aggressive expansion impact goes down, which means that other nations will be less upset with you taking other provinces. And the institution embracement cost goes down, which again has to do with embracing technologies. Next up is legitimacy, which basically has to do with is the ruler that you currently have the legitimate ruler? Does he deserve to rule? If this is high, you will get bonuses. If this is low, you will get penalties. Legitimacy goes from 0 to 100, with 0 being the lowest and 100 being the best, pretty much. And first of all, you get to see a whole bunch of reasons why legitimacy is going up right now, and after that you can see what it does. Again, a whole bunch of bonuses to your nation, which means that well, most of these are diplomatic bonuses, as in like either diplomatic in the sense of making sure that other nations like you more, or that people in your nation like you more, like having less unrest and being able to tolerate other religions better. And of course, if you have a legitimate, it makes sense, because if you have a legitimate ruler, people will tolerate you ruling that nation. Next up is power projection, which is another kind of currency or something that can give you some bonuses. Next to giving just flat bonuses like, again, trade power, morale of armies, stuff like that. This can be really good if you can get power projection to be really high, which isn't gonna be easy. But if you can get power projection above 50, you will get an extra monarch point in each 3 categories: administrative, diplomatic, and military. If you don't know what the monarch points are, it's these things, and I will talk about it later, probably in this video. Now, how do you get power projection up? There's a few actions that you can do, like embargoing rivals and insulting rivals, and doing a peace deal, which includes humiliating rival, which is only available if you are at war with your rival. Next up are these 4 icons, and these pretty much are your 4 kinds of statesmen that you have, or something like that. It's pretty much people that are at your service and you can use to influence your and other nations. First up is merchants, which are, merchants. People that are good at trading. Now, trade is another thing that I will talk about in other videos, but basically you can set these merchants to go to a trade node, and you can therefore make sure that your nation has higher income from trade, as well as making sure that other nations do not benefit from the same trade income. Next up is colonists. Colonists you can get from a few things, like that's actually for all 4 of these. You can get these from having certain government types and some idea groups. So yeah. Next up, colonists. Usually most of the nations can only get these from idea groups, and you will need a colonist if you want to colonize other provinces. I can't show that right now because I'm the Ottomans, and I can't colonize as the Ottomans right now because I don't have the I don't have the idea group unlocked yet to colonize, as well as not having the range to colonize, but I will talk about colonization in another video again. And I'm sorry for having to say every time that I won't explain something because it's in another video, but eventually I will have a whole bunch of tutorial videos just in a whole row, just in one playlist, and you can just find the video that you need. Next up is diplomats, and diplomats are used to interact with other nations. You can do a whole bunch of different actions with diplomats, and if you don't have diplomats available, so if you have sent all your diplomats to other nations, you at that point can't interact with other nations. At least mostly. There are a few actions that can be done without diplomats, but I will go into that deeper in a diplomatic video. Next up is missionaries. Pretty straightforward. You need missionaries to convert provinces that aren't your state religion to become your state religion. If you don't have any missionaries, you can't convert. If you already have sent all of them, you can't start converting another one. Down here is just the name of your nation. Here you have the flag of your nation, and if you click at that, you get a whole bunch of other interfaces that we will talk about in another video. Over here you have the production interface, which I will explain in another video, but I will click on it very briefly and tell you that there's a whole bunch more interfaces over here that give you a quick overview of a whole bunch of interactions that you can do. Again, this is something that has been added later in the game, and I actually think it's a really nice addition, since before they added this button, you pretty much needed to do everything province-wise, and now you can have a interface that you can use for your whole nation. Next up is the monarch points, or power points, or whatever you want to call it. This might even be more important than having a good economy, because power points are used for a lot of things, and you will find that you are almost always short of them. Now, what do you need to do? Where do you need these for? Well, things like raising stability and coring provinces that you just took from another nation, as well as things like buying down war exhaustion and converting provinces to another culture, as well as this being the currency that you need to go to a next technology level. Now, how do you gain monarch points? Monarch points are gained monthly by your ruler. Like, if we hover over the military power, you can see that right now we have a monthly increase of 3. This is due to having a base value of 3. So if you would have nothing else, if you have a completely terrible nation with a terrible ruler and everything, you will still get 3 military power a month. Now at this point, the Ottomans has a great ruler, and as you can see, the ruler is Mehmed II, and he has a military skill that provides a +6 in monthly military power increase. After that, you have national focus, which is something that you can set in a interface over here, and it basically means that if you choose any of the focuses, the focus that you will choose will give you 2 more power in this category. So if you choose military, you will get 2 more military points each month. But it also means that you will get 1 less in each other category. Like over here you can see the national focus +2, but in both diplomatic and administrative there's a -1 from national focus. Moving on to the Age of Discovery. Now I can't actually click on this because I don't have the DLC for clicking on it, which is the most latest DLC, the Mandate of Heaven, which has been released just a few days earlier. Now I can't tell you what this is about. If you would click this button, if you can only click it if you have the DLC. If you have the DLC and you click this button, a interface will pop up and there's a whole bunch of objectives that your nation needs to fulfill, and if you fulfill any of the objectives, you will get another currency called Splendor, I think, something like that, and basically you can use it to get a certain amount of bonuses. Now at the end of each age, and there's 4 ages: the Age of Discovery, the Age of Reformation, the Age of Absolutism, and the Age of Revolutions. At the end of each age, you will lose every bonus, and all the objectives will disappear, and you will have another row of objectives that you need to fulfill to get new bonuses. Moving on, over here is a whole bunch of alerts telling you that there's a few interactions that you can do. Like over here you have the button that right now you of course have a missionary available, and there are provinces that aren't your religion, which means that you can convert a province. If you click at this, it will take you to the screen at which you can select a province that you want to convert. Over here you have the alert for national decisions, which means that there are a few decisions that you can take. If you click at this, it will take you again to the screen, and all these things, pretty much, at least most of these screens, or most of these alerts, if you click at them, will take you to any of the interfaces over here. Next up we have truce is expiring, which means that basically the nations that will appear up here are nations that you can't declare war on right now. Well, technically you can do it, but you will get horrendous penalties for declaring war on a nation that you have a truce with. So I advise you to never ever do that unless you think it's completely necessary for the way you want to play at that point. Basically, it's just a quick way to warn you that these nations, that you shouldn't declare war on these nations. This interface tells you that there are certain buildings that you can create in any province. So this alert will pretty much always be there because, well, unless you have like no money, then it will go away, I think. But it's just an alert to remind you that you should do something with your money. The next up is your mission. Missions are just kind of little objectives that you can set. Now, of course, you can't actually decide yourself what your mission is gonna be. As in, like, you get 3 options at most that you can choose from. But yeah, fulfilling missions will give you some bonuses. So if there's any good mission available, just always check if there is a good mission available and choose any if you like them. Next up is the alert for having a free advisor slot. Advisors can give you certain bonuses, as well as giving you more power points in the category that the advisor is from, because yeah, as you can see, there's advisors for all 3 categories. So there's different levels of advisors from level 1 to level 3. Level 1 will give you plus 1 in the category that the advisor is from, and a level 3 will give you plus 3. That's a month, on monthly basis. Now this of course sounds really great, and it actually is really good, but of course you have to pay for it, which means that advisors will cost you money, and be prepared to lose a whole bunch of money if you want a amazing level 3 advisor in the early game. Next up is the alert that you can embrace new technologies. Now this will only become available if you have the amount of points that you need to tag up in any of the 3 categories. As you can see, I already spent points on disability, which means that right now I do not have the amount of points that I need to upgrade the administrative technology, but I do have enough points to upgrade diplomatic and military technology. And as you can see, that indeed pops up because it only says that I right now could upgrade diplomatic and military technology. Now here is a alert that tells you that your maximum monarch points has been reached. The way that this works is that usually you can only have a maximum of 999 diplomatic, military and administrative points. If you don't spend them and you have a maximum, you will waste points at each end of the month until you start spending them again. So it's just a quick way to remind you that you are wasting points at this point in time. Now next up we will move on to the right side of the screen. This over here just tells you what the date is. And this will progress, of course, if you let the game unpause. Over here we have the unpause button. You can either click on it or click on spacebar, and both will unpause the game. If you unpause the game will progress in time. If I were to unpause the game right now, it would only go really slow, since as you can see over here, I'm on speed 1 if I would unpause right now. You can see that by the fact that only this little icon is red and all the others are blue, I think. The screen is a little bit blurry for me, but if you click on these buttons, like the up button, as you can see, all the other icons will go red as well. So you can go from paused to speed 1 to speed 2 to speed 3 to speed 4 to speed 5, which is the maximum, and this just means that the game will progress much faster. This is also why they call it a pausable real-time strategy. Well, officially it's a grand strategy game, but if you were to describe it, it's a pausable real-time strategy game. Now over here we have 2 more icons. The first one basically, well, the first one basically says the amount of score that you have. Score doesn't do anything for you, pretty much, unless you have the DLC called The Rights of Men, which is the second to last DLC, in which case having an insane amount of points is really good for you, because if you are like the I think it's the first to 8 best in score, you will be considered to be a great power, which of course gives you a whole bunch of bonuses, as well as making some diplomatic interactions available. Right here you can see that right now we are considered to be the 8th most big power in the world, considering score, even though we don't have score, but it's just because we haven't unpaused the game yet. Over here we have a neat panel that if you click on it will put in another panel at which you can pause music. You can control your music here. So you can pause it and play it again. You can go to the next song, or you can click on this and it will pop up a whole new interface which allows you to pick whatever song you want, as well as deselecting certain songs that you don't want to hear at all. Over here is timeline, which is a feature that belongs to the DLC called Mare Nostrum. I won't click at it right now because it probably will fuck up the screen. But basically this is a really nice way to be able to make a time lapse of your game. So if you think that your game is done and you want to relive your whole campaign, you can click at this and you can just play your whole campaign. Like, no, just replay your whole campaign. Like, you won't actually be able to play in that mode, but you can see what progress you have made. Over here is the achievements button. If I were in Iron Man mode right now, I would be able to click at this button and another screen would pop up, and it would tell you that there are certain achievements that can be that you can achieve in this particular playthrough. Of course I can't do that because I'm not an Iron Man, but it would pretty much give you a whole list of what achievements you can get. And the outliner here will basically make sure that you do or do not see this screen, which I always have turned on because I do like to have this screen on. Now this screen is just a neat way to see what is going on with your nation. Like right here you can see that we have 3 diplomats, which you can also see over here. But if I were to send any or all of these diplomats to a certain country, I could see what country my diplomats are at that point, as well as if any diplomat was at that nation. Like if I were to do that right now, here it would pop up over here that I'm right now sending a diplomat to Hungary, and if I would now right click this, I can send him back, and this will say that it will take 8 days to return from Hungary to our capital, which means that I will need to wait 8 days before being able to send this particular diplomat out to another nation again. Next up is merchants, which basically shows you at which trade node all of my merchants are working on right now, and the amount of money that they are bringing to another trade node. Next up is armies, just a quick overview of how big my armies are and where they, well, actually not where they are located. Well, if you hover over it, you can see which province they are in, as well as showing what the composition of your army is, as well as being able to click at this, which is gonna select a unit, and you will be able to find it easily. And I even think that if I can just move to the other side of the map, yeah, it will bring you to the selected unit. Now the same thing for navies, just a quick way to get to a navy that you own. Now of course we have this this little button that allows you to add a whole bunch of stuff to this screen. Like right now there's not that much on this screen because it's the beginning of the game and I haven't done a lot of stuff. Like I think there's something for missionaries. Yeah, missionaries are over here. They're turned on. Which means that I think if I were to send them, yeah, it just popped up. This right now I can see that I have a missionary in Adirn. And again I can fire in. Next up is this little screen. And it, right now there's nothing in it, but if I would unpause the game right now, in this screen there would be a constant pop-up of certain actions being done by other nations. And you can filter it to only have pop-ups, or not pop-ups, just messages from certain countries. Now over here is the HRE button for the Holy Roman Empire. Now we'll be talking about the Holy Roman Empire in another video, but basically if you click at it, it will pop up a screen, which I won't talk about right now because again there's so much to talk about over here that it would take another 15 minutes or something to fully explain. The same thing for this part of the screen, which of course someone from Steam popped up and blurred it out. But there's so much going on this screen because on this part of the screen that I won't be able to go through all of this in this video. Because over here is where all the map modes are, and if you think, oh, it's only 10 map modes, that's doable. It's not 10 map modes. It's certainly not 10 map modes. So I will be talking about map modes in another video. Either I will do a completely separate video for map modes, or I will just go through every map mode when I talk about the certain mechanic that the map mode is used for. I'm not sure yet which one I will do. I might do both, so I can so you have the options to watch whatever you type of education on EU4 that you want, pretty much. Next up is just a little minimap, which pretty much is a way to move around the map quick. Because otherwise you have to zoom out first and then move your mouse to either side of the screen and move around. Or you just click at the places you want to be. You can either zoom with your middle mouse button, or you can zoom in and out with these buttons, which I never do. This button over here can pop up the log, which is another way to have a whole bunch of messages turn up from both your own and other nations. And again, there's a whole bunch of settings that you can choose. I usually have it turned off because I'm not that interested in it. Over here you have the menu button. You can either click this button or click escape and it will bring you to the same button. Which is of course a way to get out of the game and have some options available. Over here we have the ledger, which I will talk about in another video. Which probably will be a short video. History is another quick screen. I will actually talk about the history screen. I almost never look at this, but right now there's also not much in it. But if you click on this, on that button at the end of a campaign, there will be a whole bunch of text telling you what your country achieved under which monarch. So it's a quick way to see what your country has achieved. Next up is triggered modifiers, which will put up another screen, and will tell you that there, for this nation with the certain religion and stuff like that we have right now, we can get 4 modifiers if we achieve certain goals. Like right now we could get trade efficiency plus 5% if we were to have quests for the new world and be active in certain trade nodes. And the same for these other things. Bonuses if you achieve a certain goal. So again, another way to maybe get a goal for yourself to achieve in this particular campaign. Over here we have the Find Province button, which will put up a screen at which you can type something, and if I were to not have it on caps lock, it would, if you type, put up both nations, and you can see that it's a nation by the fact that there's a flag. It will pop up both nations and provinces that contain these letter combinations. You can put on if it's exact matches or not, which I always turn on. You can go to your own capital, or you just cancel it to get rid of the screen. And I guess that will have to do it. I hope you enjoyed the video, and I hope it was useful for you and that you actually learned something from it and will be able to play this game better. And I also hope to see you in any of my next videos.